The new year 2025 looks set to be held back by a deluge of adverse expectations, but there are sectors that we expect to do much better. US markets slowing and looking ready to burst, with the world's largest economy probably at the brink of socio-political chaos, major conflicts and wars in the Middle East and the Russia-Ukraine front. 2025 is looking complicated at best, peculiar, but uncertainty is a backdrop for the bold to come out of the silos, deconstruct familiar limitations, and test new possibilities. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Global Business Insights in 2025, where we educate on business with seasoned professionals able to distill the data to bring you well-grounded and fresh thinking. For business, silos can accommodate a lot, and it cannot be easy to innovate out of it. 2025 will see winners going out of the silos to find answers to old problems by straying from familiar rules. Political cleavages holding governance back can creep into the boardroom. Meta just appointed prominent Republican Joel Kaplan to be its chief global affairs officer, replacing Nick Clegg. Watch China and the faster growing BRICS economies in 2025 as they come up with more aggressive and productive innovation. As we enter 2025, the era of radical disruption, the winners will be bypassing old norms, deploying generative artificial intelligence, culture reorientation, reskilling, and unleashing creativity for better growth and competitiveness outcomes. Agentic AI may be the most hyped phrase in 2025. AI agents live on our phones or web browsers, handling digital tasks like filling out online forms, compiling the grocery basket, sending emails, transcribing your calls. 2025 could be the year of new performance frontiers. Today, data shows Europe and the UK stuck in a modest stagflation. Africa is also mired in lukewarm growth, struggling to overcome rising poverty. China is mulling over stimulus measures to avert an imminent stagnation. A so-called US golden era is likely to be held back by deep divisions. President Joe Biden is set to ban new offshore oil and gas development across some 625 million acres of US coastal territory before he leaves. His recent action with bipartisan support to block $15 billion Japan's Nippon Steel bid to buy US steel also sets a protectionist tone for 2025. Convention may suggest 2025 as the year to play safe, but the winners embrace the deconstruction, pull down the older bans, and erect new spaces for innovation and expansion by creating new wealth for populations and surprising the markets. The public sector is perhaps the most ripe to see gains using AI, especially where data has already been prepared and the hunger for reducing cost of governance compels a different approach. US banks in 2024 are on course to generate their highest annual trading revenues since 2010 as equity derivatives and credit deals power growth, bringing in almost $225 billion in trading revenues. The financial services industry sector is rife with opportunities to leverage digital technology to revolutionize productivity. Digital non-bank alternatives also challenge legacy platforms like never before. Using AI to scale up and enhance productivity in agriculture, food, and crop production improves supply chain efficiency. Retail is transitioning from a familiar e-commerce to a more intelligent commerce, where customers have superior options for choice, convenience, and service support and quality. Other sectors like healthy foods, health and wellness markets are also gaining fresh momentum. Robotics in manufacturing compel old assembly hands to embrace how to collaborate with smarter machines that actually think faster and better than humans. But a high investment outlay remains a barrier for accelerated assimilation of more expensive robotics. Crypto saw huge leaps in late 2024, but in 2025, I suspect it's still a question mark, though expectation of a more crypto friendly US could still catalyze some momentum in that space. The lax regulation could mean more FTX type flops as greed escalates risk taking. Gold will benefit from the demand for safe havens, while minerals and commodities, including oil, are held back by so global growth, with geopolitical shocks occasionally spooking supply. The climate agenda responds to infrastructure, poverty, and inequality in access to energy, presenting a way of advancing climate goals that do not leave the less developed world behind. Other businesses that do well in 2025 include niche business services supporting the AI driven technology revolution. Consulting services will also do well, finding new opportunities in coping with the inflation, like AI driven cost management. Also, services like cybersecurity consulting, AI driven change navigation strategy, and process reviews will do well. McKinsey and Co consulting firm just agreed to pay $650 million to settle a federal investigation into its work to help opioids manufacturer Purdue Pharma boost sales. Business services will keep a closer eye on the ethical compass in 2025. Other winning sectors include low-end housing and consumer products, more servitization, that's the buying of services rather than buying assets, like renting a robot instead of owning one. And we think this servitization will continue to be driven by zero waste principles as inflation abates, albeit gradually. Lagging sectors include luxury goods, luxury experience markets, especially the feebler brands. Also, consumer discretionary, that is non-essential goods and services, that is durable goods, high-end apparel, entertainment, leisure activities, and automobiles will most likely struggle. Tesla last week reported its first annual sales drop in more than a dozen years. Market difficulties will force more consolidation, that is mergers and acquisitions in the car industry. For Africa, watch for progress in trade and integration within the continent to unleash better growth. Watch for a new army of tech-based startups and more savvy exporters and green shoots in Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. Overall, the analytical crystal ball suggests 2025 is a peculiar year that favors the bold, a year of coming out of the silos, of embracing deconstruction and more radical disruption. You could call it a year of new things, as increased knowledge is assimilated faster and easier, also in a world awash with cheaper capital than in 2024 and with less barriers to innovation. But what is the latest data telling us about Nigeria? We got last week the December PMIs for Nigeria rising to 52.7, up from 49.6 in the previous month. This showed return to growth after 5 months of decline, with all four key sectors reporting increased output. The optimism was also linked to expected improvements in access to funding, while others were hopeful of an improvement in economic conditions in 2025 and softening of inflationary pressures. Senior business analyst Lekon Shote, MD Publica, comments on the outlook for Nigeria in 2025.
The government of President Bola Tinubu removed or reduced subsidies on petrol, foreign exchange, and electricity. And the greatest negative impact of these policies is the assault on the purchasing power of Nigerians, who now have to contend with very high inflation that is currently standing at 34.60%. After the Dangote refinery commenced supply into the petrol retail market, and what went wrong, that the NNPCL will soon roll out its own supply of petrol into the market. The price of petrol suddenly began to experience a slight tumbling down. The government must understand that its attempt to reduce inflation rate from 34 0.60% to 15% must go beyond the monetary policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria. This must be accompanied by fiscal and macroeconomic policies that will enable local production of strategic consumer goods like foodstuffs, textiles, building materials, and petroleum products. The baby steps in the downward and midstream subsectors of the petroleum sector are a good pointer, though, if rumors about NNPCL's intention of cutting crude supply to Dangote and other local refineries are not true. The expectant giant strides of the upstream subsector must deliver the promised 3 million barrels of petroleum per day. Also, there must be concrete steps to secure the farms to enable farmers to produce both food and cash crops for local consumption and for export. Right now, there are no clear indicators to reviving the manufacturing industry. The textile industry, erstwhile Nigeria's second largest employer of labor after the government, is not receiving sufficient attention. Policymakers who think the intervention loan introduced by the President Olusegun Obasanjo administration is a silver bullet to reviving the textile industry miss it totally. It is not. Government must meet with players in the manufacturing sector to arrive at appropriate policy decisions to revive the manufacturing sector of the economy. The Nigerian economy urgently needs macroeconomic policies that can reduce imports and increase exports. The respective decrease in demand for foreign exchange and the increase of the foreign reserves should strengthen the naira and reduce inflation.
In Nigeria, over the last decade, GDP per capita has declined due to mainly low productivity and growth as a result of stagflation, inconsistent economic policies, and the devaluation. The ongoing exercise to rebase GDP and inflation will not address the issue of productivity, unemployment, and growth. Analysts think that getting the economy back requires a lower debt burden and restoration of its international credit rating to investment grade as it stabilizes the exchange rate regime. 16.3 trillion naira in debt servicing in the 25 budget is not sustainable given that that figure exceeds the defense, security, infrastructure, education, and health combined 14 trillion naira spend. According to consultant CFG Advisory in their outlook for 2025, Nigeria urgently needs to review its capital structure and balance sheet by selling down its JV oil assets to raise 30 to 50 billion US dollars, also restructuring the balance sheet and provide foreign exchange for naira appreciation and improving its credit rating to investment grade while increasing net reserves. These actions will stimulate sustainable growth, productivity, and employment, and must also be supported by coordinated monetary, fiscal, trade, and investment policies. EVI, in their own analysis, see 2025 as the year where we should really go after the privatization of the National Petroleum Oil Company, as was envisaged in the Petroleum Act. The S&P 500 in 2024 notched a second consecutive annual gain. It was up over 20% over the year, helped by anticipation of rate cuts, the AI hype, and broad optimism on the economy. Amid thin trading so far in 2025, US equities closed negative for the week, but still up on Friday. European stocks closed out a holiday-shortened week lower, with luxury firms leading losses. Asian stocks were also lower in Shanghai and Hong Kong. Well, that's all we have on today's special episode of Global Business Insights. Thank you so very much for watching, and please subscribe to follow the channel. This is Bode Oshosami. Bye-bye.